Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. We are from group 4 and we will present about language and gender. Let us start the presentation from the first material that will be delivered by Andi Khalil Ridwan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Andi Khalil Ridwan and I'm from group 4, language and gender. And today I will explain about my material, sex and gender. And from my material have a 4 point. The first point is division of human into male and female. The second point is feminism claims, and the third point is male and female voice. And for the last point is conclusion. The first point, division of human into male and female. This chapter have called language and gender rather than language and sex to draw attention to the fact that what concerns me here is the socio-cultural dimension of the division of humans into male and female persons rather than its biological determinants. The second point is feminism claims. Many feminists have concluded from evidence such as this that the basic human form is female and the melanis represents an additional to this basically female grown plate. Interestingly, this idea that women are appendage to the man finds a counterpart in many languages such as English, where many feminine occupational terms are formally derived from the male version. There are no all-male species. This is what gives rise to the stereotype that women are more excitable and emotional than men. And the third point is male and female voice. However, male-female differences in pitch cannot be fully accounted for without reference to social factors. A well-known case is Margaret Thatcher, whose female voice was considered a liability to the public image of her the media wanted to project. All speakers raise their pitch somewhat in public speaking to make themselves heard, but because most women's voices are already higher pitched than those of men's, they have less liability to raise their pitch before listeners start to perceive them as real and emotional. And for the conclusion and the last point is, there may be a biological element to it too. Over time, human as well as animal males have developed a low-pitched voice to sound dominant and aggressive, probably in order to compete with one another for access to female mating partner. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello guys, I am Anam Haryanto Halwardoyo from Group 4 Sociolinguistic. So in this video, I will tell you about man-made language. There are 4 points. But in this video, I will tell you just 2 points, which this point is related with another one. So the first one is man-made language arguments from feminists. So the feminist arguments that language is man-made. Then our history, philosophy, governments, laws, and religion are products of a male way of perceiving and organizing the world. Because this knowledge has been transmitted for centuries, it appears natural, objective, a master discourse beyond question. In this man-made world, view, women are seen as deviant and deficient. So language thus holds the key to challenging and changing male hegemony. And then the second point, is sexism in language. Sexism in language. Sexism in language can be demonstrated with many different kinds of evidence. Words for women have negative connotation even where the corresponding male terms designate the same uh, male terms designate the same state or condition for men. Now, such a distinction reflects the importance of society's expectation about marriage, and more importantly, about marriageable age. A spinster is more than a female bachelor. She is beyond the expected marrying age and therefore seen as rejected and undesirable. These cultural stereotypes about old maids being losers in card game and the marriage market also affect the term maiden. As in maiden aunt or maiden lady, and notably even expression such as maiden horse to refer to a horse entry on figurative to a horse that has not won a race. The Oxford English Dictionary's entry on figurative uses of the term maiden defines them as sharing the meaning of yielding no results. Women who have not caught a man have lost the race.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Tasmaningsi and I will continue the presentation. Collocation transmit cultural meanings and stereotypes which have built up over time. If the problem lies not with the words themselves, but how they are used, these possess considerable problems for reform which targets the elimination of sexist language. Men are more likely to be referred with the positive adjectives such as honest and intelligent, while only women are described as silly and hysterical. Negative terms such as frigid, neuric, loose relating to sexuality occur predominantly with the female terms, as the terms such as blondie and ugly describing appearance. Because the word woman does not share equal status with men, terms referring to women have undergone pejoration. If we examine pairs of gender-marked terms such as lord, lady, baronet, dame, sir, madam, master, mistress, king, queen, wizard, or warlock, with which we can see how the female terms may start out on equal footing, but they become default over the time. Many feminists have pointed out that it is difficult even to trace the history of women because the history of most countries, as Virginia Woolf said in Talking About England, is the history of the male line. Men are seen as the creative force. Men by definition have careers, but women who do so must be marked as deviant. A man can also be a family man, but it would be odd to call a woman a family woman. Women are by definition family women. Language as a helper to generalization. Language has helped to gender the way we think about space. Men's space is public, in the workplace, while women's place is private in the home. In Japanese, these views are embedded in the terms used by husbands and wives to refer to one another. A married woman is called okusan, which means Miss Interior, signifying that her place is in the home. Japanese men call their wives kanai, house insider. Women speak of their husbands as sujin or dana, or more the informal tissue, which means master of an inn or tea house. That's all I want to explain, and thank you. I will explain about the third part, namely learning to talk like a lady. Recently, far less attention has been focused on individual words used by men and women, and more on their conversational styles. We are all familiar with the stereotype that women gossip and chat, while men are talk shop, meaning that instead of gossiping, they are more about discussing work or business.
Do men talk more than women? Actual research reveals that men talk more than women in various contexts: husband and wife interactions, TV discussions, meetings. There is examples. And again, the topic discussed by women are different from men. Where the typical topic of women, such as raising children and personal relationship, is seen as trivial when compared to men like sport, work, and politics. However, this assessment reflects the differences in the social value we have about men and women who define what men do as more important. The study also revealed very different pattern of verbal interaction across a group of boys and girls, stating in the early years when children played in same-sex per group, boys tend to have a large network than girls. An example of activity that are commonly carried out by girls and boys. On average, girls only need 3 to 6 girls to jump rope, or 2 to 3 to play house and dolls. In while for boys groups, more members are needed, as in a soccer team game. The extensive interaction within same-sex per group may be an important source of the patterns of gender differentiation discovered by sociolinguistics. Even so, it cannot be denied that women are able to speak 1,000 topics because they use two sides of the brain when speaking, which allow women to talk about various topics, which even when speaking, women's ear remain active so that it's easy to switch to related topics. Whereas boys only use one side of the left brain, where this they can only focus on one topic of discussing. So we can judge for ourselves which is correct, whether it is a man or woman who talk the most. Uh, what is uh, what is a mean by learning to talk like a lady? As is well known, boys and girls first learn woman language at home and school, because their primary caregiver are mothers and female teachers. It's just that during adolescents they are under peer pressure, so boys turn to the more non-standard ways of speaking, while girls maintain their more standard way of speaking. Some people even notice the difference between what girls and boys say. They say that girls speak more politely, while boys are more rude and use more slang and swearing. There is also competitive pressure on the children from their peers. Boys, in particular, feel they should talk harshly with other boys so as not to get ridiculed, while girls are under equal pressure to fit uh, to fit into a group. They must be careful not to go too far, or people will judge them negatively.
Okay, so I'm going to present a material about gossip versus shop talks. So there are some ways of speaking management of social interactions, and there are a different kind of speech styles between men and women. We can see that men tend to challenge one another, such as arguing their partner, and men trying to compete to dominate the conversation and ignoring what has been said before. On the other hand, women do not value aggressiveness and their conversations tend to be more interactional. They can talk more than an hour by discussing about themselves. And it turns out when women talk too much, they tend to apologize because they dislike anyone dominating the conversation. Women do what has been called the shit work of conversation. Women value details in conversation because they represent a sign of involvement with others. But men are not socialized to be concerned with taking care of others. and do not use talk in this way. What happened in talk between women and men? We can see that there is such a potential for miscommunication, and in fact, lack of communication is one of the most frequently given reasons for breakdown of marital relations leading to divorce. In mixed-sex conversation, men interrupt women more with the result that women are less able to complete their turns at talk and tend to talk less. In some situations, women want to talk with their partner men like the way they used to talk, like they're an old school friend. Women do not value aggressiveness, and their conversations tend to be more interactional and aimed at seeking cooperation. But all the work that women do towards maintaining conversation still leaves them at a disadvantage because men end up dominating conversations. It is a common experience of many women to have their own contributions ignored. But once a man makes the same point, it is seen to be important and worth further consideration by the group.
I want to explain about language reform, a misguided attempt to change history. Language is clearly part of the problem, but how can we make it part of the solution? As one feminist says, male superiority should not be confused with male power. That is why some of them not only want to read language of its male bias, but also want to use terms such as pinter or hack passively. One feminist writes that is, there are men who feel uncomfortable about being included. They should think of how women feel within minutes of opening mass books. A reform in usage is required to promote a positive self-image. Symbolic Mrs. or Miss. One study in Canada indicated that many people use Mrs. for married women, Miss for women who have never been married, and Miss for discovered women. For some people, Miss also carries the connotation that the woman who uses the title is trying to hide the fact that she is single. This indicates the high premium that dominant institution still place on defining women in terms of their relationship with men. Why should society perception of men and women change? This makes it clear that society perception of men and women must change in order for linguistic reform to be successful. The United States Department of Labor and other governments have made some attempts to eliminate sexist language in their documents. Language reform has only limited success. The findings show that there were still more male images than female ones, regardless of the pronoun use and regardless of whether the subject and form his or her written use. However, only women who had reformed their use produced more female image, and they did so for all three pronouns. Thus, even the men who had absolutely reformed their use had done so only superficially and were still heterocentric in their thought patterns. In some respect, this shows that language reform have had only limited success.
And now I will continue the next material, namely social characteristic and conclusion. The first, I will describe an example of social characteristic. Mostly proposed by women, it is not surprising that women appear to have the greatest influence. Men take more confusing, but then they lose more, and women gain more from such reforms in another sense. However, the change in significance from the perspective on Euler experiment in the 1970s, in which people were given journal articles the evaluate. Some revised article that had a female author's name will other receive in article that was exactly the same but given a male author's name. Both men and women rated the same article as better and more scientific when they thought they were written by men rather than women. Women currently don't need experiments to tell
them about this beast. It is partly for this reason that Emily Bronte published Wuthering Heights under the male protagonist Alice Bell. Since then, Richards has shown how differently the novel is interpreted when it is discovered that women are the authors. Many argument that some aspects of women's conventional style with an emphasis on cooperation and solidarity rather than competitive and competitiveness are desirable for everyone. In principle, there is no reason why the negative connotations and stereotypes associated with women cannot be changed by language planning. A refer of a newspaper article will reveal that women are more often referred to as women, whereas in the same context men are referred to as men. The tendency to comment on the appearance of women but not men is something I personally experienced when an article appeared about me in the British National Press short after my opponent in 1984 to my position at Oxford. A male report write that phonetically silk bills emerged from a casual strip sweater very rarely is comment in on the way men dress as often a woman. There is evidence that public norms from language use are changed. The Wisdom Post desk book in style, for example, says that only last name will be used as a secondary reference for men and women in newspaper articles. And the last, in conclusion, we can say that the study of gender differentiation is much more complete than it seems at first glance. The next chapter, we will show how a gender influence will differ from culture to culture and can interact with many social characteristics of speakers such as social class, age, context, to various levels of language change. The extent of sexist language is not just a linguistic problem but a social one. Therefore, any improvement will require change in both society and language. Thank you.